Good evening, Alan here with our Discovering Buddhism class. Hope you're well. Hope you're staying cool. So we've got our third class tonight on taking refuge and refuge, what refuge means, refuge in the three jewels. Hopefully you got the notes. So let's, as always, start. Hi, Julia. Great to see you. Let's start always with our mindfulness practice. 5 minutes, focusing on the breath to allow us to calm the mind and to get in the frame of mind for doing some Dharma practice, Dharma study. Right. So just get comfortable, either sitting, lying on a floor, on the cushion, whatever's the most easier to relax the body. The main thing is if the body's relaxed, much easier to relax the mind, which is what Alan Wallace always says. Let's start. Okay, now we're just coming into our inner world, letting go of our busy day, all the external distractions, attractions, stimuli. Time to let that go. Time to just bring our attention inwards, starting with our body. Spending just a few moments to appreciate our great fortune to be able to come together and do some practice together, do some study, to look at the Dharma, just refreshing our motivation. We're doing our study to develop our own wisdom and compassion, and ultimately that will benefit others. So we're not just doing the practice for our own benefit, but for the benefit of all other beings. Now just coming into the body. Are we evenly balanced on the floor or the chair? The shoulders relaxed, spine reasonably straight. Feeling the weight of the body, allowing gravity to gently draw us into the earth, letting go, using the out-breath to let go of any physical tension in the body. And gradually giving more attention to the movement of the breath in the body. Allowing the breath to enter and leave the body without any control, the natural rhythm of the breath. Also just checking from time to time, are we still on the breath? There will always be thoughts, distractions, sounds. If we find we've left the breath and been distracted, don't worry, it's just a thought. Gently let go, patiently come back to the breath. Home to the breath. Staying with the breath, the full flow of the in-breath and the full flow of the out-breath. One breath at a time. Okay, so just relax and come back into the room. So hopefully you've got the notes. So today we'll just have a quick look at last week, just to refresh. We looked at what the Buddha Jewel, the meaning of the Buddha Jewel of Refuge and the Dharma Jewel of Refuge. So the Buddha Jewel, just briefly, can be looked at by just looking at the body, speech and mind of the Buddha. The body is that very formal definition of the what they call the emanation body of the Buddha, how a Buddha would appear if we could actually see a Buddha. The markings of the Buddha is said to be 32 auspicious signs and 80 markings. So none of the teachings go into detail to describe, none of the teachings that are in the readings describe all of them, but we just had a quick look at some of them, such as the golden hue of the Buddha's body, the fact that as soon as a person sees such a body, there's a feeling of peace and happiness. Just seeing the Buddha can transform our minds. We're told that in many stories. So those auspicious signs and marks are all part of the teachings, but usually we haven't been blessed, most of us, to be able to actually see an emanation body of the Buddha. So we see representations of the Buddha. So we can see statues, stupas, tankas, and these manifest the Buddha's qualities. And so it's said that because Buddhas are constantly working to help sentient beings in all different embodiments. So if we have faith in a statue or a relic of the Buddha, and say we have it on the altar and we actually pray to it with the faith that the Buddha's presence is there, then this can be incredibly powerful to our mind. And there's this wonderful story of the I think it was someone during the Buddha's time, or just soon after the Buddha's time, the mother of a Buddhist pilgrimage asked her son when he was going to actually go to some pilgrimage site. I'm not sure where it was, in India, and she asked him to bring back a relic of the Buddha, a tooth of the Buddha, which I guess might have been more available in those days. But so the son promised he would, but of course the son either forgot or couldn't actually find Buddha's tooth. But he actually came back with a dog's tooth, which he told the mother was actually the Buddha's tooth. So the mother, of course, revered this item, put it on the altar and prayed every day to it. And the story is that the tooth manifested relics. That means it showed, emanation. So sometimes holy relics of the Buddha they multiply, and sometimes they take the shape of little pearls. So you can actually see these if you're fortunate enough to go and see an exhibition of Buddha's relics. Sometimes you can see different aspects of the relics in the form of pearls or other sort of aspects. So this actually, the power of the point is that the mother's devotion to what was not actually Buddha transformed the object into a relic, into a Buddha, into a very powerful object. So the Buddha's various emanations can take the form of relics, other sentient beings, could be dogs or animals, or even things like water, bridges, things that are needed to benefit beings. So the other aspect is speech, the Dharma. Of course, the Buddha's, the Jewel of Refuge includes the speech of the Buddha, and that actually is manifest conventionally as the Dharma teaching. So the sutras, records of the Buddha's teaching, three turnings of the wheel, of the different levels of teachings given by the Buddha, three turnings of the wheel of Dharma. Then the mind of the Buddha, we just looked at some of the aspects of the Buddha's omniscient mind, all knowing. So the Buddha has complete understanding of all phenomena. That means understanding the empty nature of all phenomena, wisdom realizing the empty nature of all phenomena. That means also being able to see the karma of all sentient beings. So see the karma of all beings, how their present situation was created by karma in the past, in past lives. So all these are extremely extraordinary abilities. And also there's the great compassion of the Buddha, able to treat all beings equally with great compassion. So many stories about that. So that's basically the Buddha Jewel. And then the Dharma Jewel, we looked at the conventional, ultimate Dharma Jewel is the realizations of the teachings. So wisdom relaying emptiness, great compassion, these are the ultimate Dharma Jewels. The end points of the Dharma. So the conventional Dharma Jewel are the actual teachings themselves. So these are the gateways to our understanding. So of the three jewels of refuge, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, the Dharma is usually our entrance to the other two. So we hear teachings, and from some understanding of the teachings, our interest extends to the Buddha. Well, what is the end point of these teachings? It's Buddhahood. And so we use this Sangha also, the collection of practitioners to help us along the way, on the path. So this week we're going to look at the Sangha Jewel in more depth, the benefits of taking refuge, and how taking refuge can change how, if we do feel that we're at the point of taking refuge, or that we, over time, our mind is becoming refuge. I think this is what Lama Yeshe says very powerfully. Refuge is being refuge. It's a state of mind. So it's not going to happen very suddenly. It can take a long time, although it might happen suddenly if there's a revelation, realization. So the other really useful, I think, idea which we looked at in the very first class was the difference between causal and resultant refuge. So causal, this is very well explained in Yangtze Rinpoche's book. Causal refuge being looking for something outside ourselves, looking for an object outside ourselves for help. So this is this develops. So causal refuge, we need to see why the three jewels, the objects of refuge, are worthy of our faith. Resultant refuge is the end point, our future enlightenment, and that comes from our Buddha nature. We see that it's possible to become enlightened, but the causal refuge is how to get there. So we see the Buddha, for example, is an infallible source of refuge. We have some understanding of what the Buddha's mind is, how it's possible to clear and purify all stains, all our obscuration, because the Buddha, of course, himself was an ordinary being at one stage. So we develop this faith that why the Buddha is worthy of object, what he's done, incredible amount of work done to obtain enlightenment over an infinite number of lifetimes. So that the teachings are the bridge, the teachings that the Buddha gave. He's giving those, teaching us how to become enlightened, and those who help us along the way, they're the Sangha. So we develop the cause to reach the goal. Another sort of more probably crude analogy is if we want to become a doctor, we have an idea of what a doctor does. Okay, so see that's a thing that we'd like to do. We'd also need to have some faith in ourselves that we have the capacity to do that. and then the cause, we find out how to do that. And means you've got to go through all the education, primary, secondary, tertiary, do the years and years of study at university, then years of practical practice, and then you become qualified. So that's similar in some way to seeing that Buddhahood, our future enlightenment. So we have the capacity. We need to understand and have some faith in our own inner Buddha nature, made very clear in Lama Yeshe's teaching about we have some compassion, we have some wisdom, we have some realization of how things exist, we have some patience, loving kindness. All this are the building blocks of our future progression. And then we hear that our mind by nature is Buddha nature, is able to be transformed into a Buddha mind. It can be transformed because of the dependent arising nature of the mind, that nothing is changeable. It's not a permanent fixed entity. So all these little realizations or these understandings contribute. And so refuge to me is definitely something that's an ongoing thing. It's never until you become enlightened, it's something that's a work in progress. Every day there's some more, hopefully a little bit more, rather than less understanding, of a little bit more progress. So so where are we? We're still on review. Okay, we better start on the Sangha Jewel. So Sangha Jewel, this is one of the things, I was looking at Venerable Dondra's teachings. He doesn't spend a lot of time talking about the Sangha Jewel. Then Practicing the Path by Yangtze Rinpoche has quite a bit. Basically, Yangtze Rinpoche says that there are two ways of looking at it: ultimate Sangha Jewel and conventional. The ultimate Sangha Jewel, he says very simply, is basically a Mahayana practitioner who has realized emptiness directly. So this is the Mahayana view. Of course, there are many different teachers and texts giving slightly different definitions and explanations, as in all Buddhist topics. Again, I would admit His Holiness Dalai Lama's teachings on the Three Jewels is by far the most detailed, and that goes into great detail about all the different schools, including the Hinayana and Mahayana, Tantrayana, different approaches, different aspects of the Sangha Jewel, the Three Jewels. So, but Yangtze Rinpoche just says Mahayana practitioner has realized emptiness directly. That's the sort of simple definition. So this may be a Buddha. Of course, obviously a Buddha has realized emptiness directly, but also what they call an Arya being who may realize emptiness not for while they're in meditation, but not continuously. So these beings are extremely highly realized, but they've got such realizations that they can still help us as Sangha. They're not Buddhas, but they can help us. So there's a lot of explanation for these different beings who are very, very advanced stream enterers, once returners. There's these are different descriptions of beings who are very close to Buddhahood. And of course, the Bodhisattva is the Mahayana being who's on the way to Buddhahood. And there's said to be 10 different levels of Bodhisattva of progress towards Buddhahood. So all these beings are so vastly realized that they can be helpful to if we have the fortune to read their teachings or to even hear their teaching, they're worthy of treating as Sangha Jewels, of refuge, taking refuge. Yangtze Rinpoche explains that there are 8 qualities of Sangha, quite technical distinction, technical lists, which I won't go into. There are 3 about wisdom, different levels of wisdom, understanding wisdom, realize emptiness. There are 3 about being free of obscuration, and there's others about compassion and so on. So more, probably more practically, there is the conventional view of Sangha, or relative. Lama Yeshe calls it absolute and relative Sangha. So it could be said that could be the description, or ultimate and conventional. So the conventional Sangha Jewel, the list, there's various interpretations depending on what text, what level. That list, I think, was basically compiled by Waichon, so I've just kept it. He says the first interpretation of what the Sangha Jewel is conventionally is a community of at least 4 ordained monks or nuns. It says monks there, but I think nuns would be included. I hope so. So 4 is like the threshold to be able to say that Sangha exists. So if the Sangha exists in Sydney, there are 4 ordained beings there. So if Sangha exists in a country, then there needs to be 4 ordained beings in that country. So this is a way of kind of describing whether the Dharma exists in a certain place as well. So second example is the second interpretation of the Sangha Jewel is any Buddhist monastic community in general. So so if we're talking about where the Sangha are going to sit during teachings, we're just talking about anyone who's ordained. That could be ordained in different Buddhist traditions. It could be, the Theravada monks are there to hear teachings by His Holiness, as well as the Mahayana monks. Not sure whether they would include ordained Christian practitioners. Interesting. I just thought of that and haven't actually seen any teachings or observations on that. So anyway, let's stick to the Buddhist Sangha. And next one is a community of 4 types of Buddhist practitioners, which I haven't heard before, but 4 types would include monastic and lay. So remember, Buddhist practitioners don't have to be ordained. So it could be monastic, lay, male and female, or any combination of those 4 variations. But then the last one, a community of fellow Buddhist practitioners. So this is quite a broad definition. Lama Yeshe agrees that some Sangha could be defined as that. It doesn't mean that that's only what Sangha is, but he says we're all relative Sangha. So we students who are interested in the Dharma are like-minded in the sense that we have this interest in investigating Buddhist teachings, practicing the Buddhist teachings, meditating. So we support each other. He says we give each other energy. So, but he also points out there in that quote that we're not yet liberated, so we need Sangha to help. So, so we're Sangha in the sense that we all doing our practice together and like-minded, but we're not realized beings, so we need more people to know who know more about the Buddhist teaching. Sangha who've advanced further along the path, studied more to be able to help us. And the next quote, he says, if you discover absolute truth, which is wisdom realizing emptiness, or you're on the first level of bodhisattva, that's called the bodhisattva bhumi I just mentioned, then you don't need support. So you are Sangha. So you don't need Sangha to support you. I think that's what he means by that. So at a certain stage in our progress, in practice and meditation and so on, as we realize the truth of the Buddhist teachings and practice them, meditate, then we reach a stage where we are actually Sangha ourselves. We don't need the support or teachings of others. So these are very advanced practitioners, realizing emptiness and being on the path of the first level Buddha, Bodhisattva Brahmins. So these are very high level practitioners. I just put the quote there on page 2. I think Lama Yeshe describes this just to give you an idea of how powerful the minds are of Bodhisattvas. So the very beginning level of Bodhisattva has the mental ability to manifest 100 bodies, and these can also manifest another 100 bodies, and they can, manifest in different places to the benefit of other beings. So the bodies could either be human bodies or they could be inanimate objects, statues, and so on. So this is the power of the mind of Bodhisattvas. They're the Bodhisattvas at the first level. As they go up in level, the power of their minds increase. So, thought I would just read a little tiny bit of His Holiness's teachings on distinguishing features of the three jewels. So this is just like looking back at the three jewels as a whole, the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So he says, quoting His Holiness from the book in the reading list, in their defining characteristics, the Buddhas are those who have abandoned all defects and developed all good qualities limitlessly. So they're omniscient. That means they know all phenomena. They're able to know both ultimate and conventional truths simultaneously. The Dharma Jewel consists of true paths, true sensations, and true cessations, which when actualized, so that the true paths are true teaching and the realizations. So when these paths are actualized in our mind, they're the real protection from suffering, dukkha. The Buddha appeared in our world to teach us how to actualize the Dharma Jewel, and in doing so, he fulfills our wishes. The Sangha Jewel consists of Aryas who have realized the Dharma and are qualified to guide us so we can do the same. They demonstrate the correct practice and prove the validity of the usefulness of the Buddha's teachings. So, Aryas, the great beings, very advanced beings, Arya Bodhisattvas. So they may not be Buddhas, but they're on the way, very close to it. So, just keeping an eye on time. So let's just look at this, a list that comes up in the text. I think Yeshua Lam Zopa actually mentions these 8 benefits of taking refuge. They're worth a look. And Yangtze Rinpoche in his textbook also, he explains them very well. So basically this list comes from Yangtze Rinpoche's text, page 151, if you want to make a note. So we become an inner being. So this pops up, this phrase, inner being. So inner being means that we have confidence in our ability to become Buddha ourselves and to practice and to cultivate the mind of refuge through listening to teachings and study. So as we become familiar with the teachings, as we meditate, analyze, use reason, we become familiar, and we also have some refuge from past lives, some practice of refuge from past lives to help us. So our inner life, our inner spiritual life becomes stronger. And also, without refuge, Yangtze Rinpoche points out, actually, there are practitioners who can just decide that they will become perfect meditators. They'll just practice shamatha, perfect concentration, for example. So they don't do refuge, but they just become incredibly stable, powerful meditators. Now, he points out that they will get a certain way in their spiritual practice, but they won't be able to complete it. And he says, without taking refuge, because they haven't they haven't put the teachings in context. So, for instance, they won't have the importance of compassion in their teaching, the motivation. They won't have that. So, without the background of taking refuge in the three jewels, knowledge of the Buddha's teaching, in that aspect of the Buddha's teachings, they'll get stuck. They said the Ancient says they might even get to what they call the peak of samsara, which is the formless realm, very high realm where the mind of the person is extremely stable, concentration is perfect, but they're still in samsara. They're not liberated. They still suffer, and they still can fall down to lower realm. So without refuge, we can do a certain amount of practice, but it's not possible to progress and become liberated and enlightened. Second one, we begin to watch our actions and subdue the mind. So we become more circumspect about realizing cause and effect. What we do, what we see, what we say, and what we think is actually going to have an effect on ourselves and others. So it's a very sobering thought. And as this comes home to our mind, to us, we begin to watch. We're more careful. So also, if we take this just a little bit on vows. So the power of taking a vow means that what we do is much more powerful. So there are what they call lay vows, for instance. If you do retreat with Rabina, or with Daiki, I think Daiki, say a weekend retreat on prostrations or bodhicitta, then she will often, or usually probably give you the option of taking vows at the beginning of each of the days. So all that is what they call lay vows, where you make a promise beginning of the day before dawn. You won't kill, you won't lie, you won't commit sexual misconduct. There's 6 or 7 different promises, and just by making the vows in the context of refuge, because of course you take refuge when you take the vow, it becomes very, very powerful. So just abstaining from these actions on the basis of vow, we create enormous amount of merit. Enormously, not doing negative actions normally won't create merit, just abstaining, but with vow, they are much more powerful, and vows are rooted in refuge, the idea of refuge. So reduces mental afflictions, purifies negative karma. So again, there's if you do say a Nungne retreat, which we do at VI, I think we've done one this year, by Daiki, Venerable Daiki. It's very purifying practice. And the purifying practice use what they call the 4 opponent powers, if you remember that. If anyone has done a Nungne or perhaps any purification retreat, one of the opponent powers is taking refuge. And again, the knowledge of the power of the Buddhist Dharma Sangha, that if we purify in that context, taking refuge becomes much stronger. That's one of the pillars of purification, the 4 opponent power. Allow greater merit to be created, so our wishes are easily fulfilled. And there's quite an interesting story in Yangtze Rinpoche's book. He says there's an example of a potter. This is during the Buddha's time, who whenever he made pottery, it would break. There was some sort of bad luck he was having with his business of pottery, And so the Buddha, with his omniscient mind, could see that he needed to create more merit. So he said, go and live in a monastery. Don't have to be, I don't think he said you have to be ordained, but just take refuge in a monastery and do the refuge practice. And that will help your mind obtain merit, which he did, and came back and became a very successful potter, didn't break any pots. So the idea of merit, which is like a mental foundation, very important. Dharma says people who really want to obtain shamatha, they think that, that if they just go into the bush somewhere, into a cave, get everything physically perfect, then they'll be able to obtain shamatha in a short time. I think 6 months is perfect, the minimum time if you've got perfect conditions. But he said that's good, but you need an incredible amount of merit to be able to obtain shamatha. It's not just about having perfect condition and strong motivation, but you need merit. And merit, part of merit is the refuge practice, obtaining merit. Protects from negative influence from humans and non-human. So there are these obstacles that we come across. Could be our obstacles to our life. And there's another interesting story by Yangtze Rinpoche who says, he talks about there was a practitioner who, he was an Arya being, which is a very high being, who was actually going to be killed by bandits. They found him hiding in a basket, but because of his incredible merit and his refuge practice, he was able to escape and they didn't kill him. We don't fall into lower realms, self-explanatory. We come ashore a temporary and long-term goal, and we quickly realise enlightenment. So Yangtze Rinpoche says quite clearly that if refuge seems to be failing us, it's not the fault of the 3 jewels of refuge. It will be we lack the attitude. Means that we haven't taken causal refuge strongly enough. We're still floundering in our fear. He mentions the beginning level of refuge is fear of karma, cause and effect, fear of the lower realms, where if our negative karma comes to fruition, we might end up in great suffering realm, and faith that the 3 jewels have a faith to be able to save us from that fate, fear and faith. So if that's strong, he said, the benefits of refuge will happen. Depends on our minds, our work in progress. It's being refuge, as Lama Yeshe says, living refuge. So just now, a little bit about after taking refuge. Some of these things are to do with etiquette, how we treat statues, and things that we need to be more careful of. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to have taken refuge at a ceremony, but just even if we're maybe not feeling that we're actually at the stage of taking refuge, but it's just for protocol. So if you go to a centre, for instance, you observe whatever it is that the people who go there, the students do in that centre. That, like, for instance, they don't put the text on the floor. That's a very strong Buddhist tradition. That's a sign of disrespect if you put Buddhist text straight on the floor. So you either put them on a piece of fabric or a cushion or something to show respect. Another one is not to point feet at statues of the Buddha. But these are just things, very basic things that anyone who's even maybe not the level of taking refuge would observe, just to be polite and observe what happens in that particular place. So taking shoes off before you go into the gompa is another one. So probably more importantly, Yangshu Rinpoche says we shouldn't take refuge once we feel that we've got faith in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha and the three jewels. We should have banned taking refuge in anything than a fully enlightened being. That means you don't take refuge in what they call worldly protectors. So Nagas are very powerful beings. Nagas are these beings that live under the earth, very rich, very powerful, but they're actually not enlightened beings. They can be quite harmful. So there are also some they call them worldly protectors, beings that we can't actually see, but they offer help, but they're not enlightened beings, and so they can actually harm as well. So if you start serving a worldly protector and then move away from them, they could actually feel upset because they're not enlightened beings. They could feel offended and so on. So they could cause harm. So the other thing is, he says, once you've got to the stage that you feel that you can see that the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are the way to go. They suit our minds, they suit our predispositions, and we have faith that the three jewels are the path that we want to follow. We should stop window shopping. No need to start looking around for other religions, and don't sort of mix up different traditions in what he calls a soup. But so he says that, and then he says, but don't, of course, become averse to don't be discriminatory and say that the Buddhist path is the only path for everybody. Nobody should follow other paths. So it's being ecumenical, of course, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama always says, very, very strongly that people should basically follow their own religious tradition. But if they feel after investigating and reasoning and so on that Buddhist path is for them, then fine, they can follow that. But otherwise, they should allow people to take their own path and practice the religion that suits them. No evangelizing. No, that's very, very much against Buddhist practice, Buddhist teaching. Also, definitely you abandon harming others in body, speech, and mind. And so he mentions things like being kinder to other beings, and he even gives the example of poor in India, where there are people who are helping to carry our luggage and so on, and people who are actually not necessarily in India, people who deliver our food to the door and so on. We should be kind and not act arrogantly or unfeelingly towards these beings. Not only human beings, but it says animals. It means we should, as much as possible, avoid harming animals, definitely killing intentionally animals, and if possible, be vegetarian if it is possible medically. Also, the environment. He says, we should respect the environment, not support violent things like arms trading, drug trading, weapons trading. So acting ethically as much as possible, avoiding harming as much as possible, helping as much as possible. So it covers these things, looking after the environment. And also, we still have friends who aren't Dharma practitioners, of course, but avoiding mixing with people who are actually negative-minded, people who could actually influence ourselves negatively. As Lama Yeshe says, we're baby Buddhists, particularly if we go to the East, take teachings in India and Nepal, and then come back. All that energy that we accumulate the power, the enthusiasm for Buddhist practice can easily be dissipated when we're in the very Western materialist environment. So that's where it's very important to have this group of supporting group. That's the lay Sangha, the people who go to centres, and also the actual ordained Sangha. That's why centres, Rinpoche, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, so centres are like an emergency casualty in a hospital for the mind, and how important they are. So it's like much more powerful, more important to have Buddhist centres to help people mental emergencies, mental illnesses. Well, not, of course, it's important to have hospitals as well, but he sees these as being extremely important centres where, again, we can take refuge, physical refuge in a centre and refuge in the three jewels. So just a little few details there about etiquette and so on. So it means that we can have I'll talk about this, the next topic is having a daily practice and how to have a daily practice, setting up an altar. So having perhaps a representation of the Buddha on the altar, and how that can help, taking refuge in that Buddha jewel each day helps create merit, maybe making prostrations towards the object, the representation, seeing the representation as actually the Buddha themselves, not so much as a physical piece of statue. So regardless of whether it's made of gold or how much it's worth financially, seeing the image as a representation of the Buddha, rather than looking at it as an object of value, of financial value. So this is the same with the statues, the drawings, stupas, paintings, and so on. The same respect as if we had the Buddha there. So basically, there's another thing you should. This is Lama Zopa's instruction. If you have old Dharma materials, like an old book or pictures of the Buddha or our teachers, our Sangha, we shouldn't just throw them in the garbage bin. So the correct way to destroy what they call Dharma material or Dharma burning is to burn the material. And there's a visualization where we say the mantra Om Ahum, and imagine the letters of the Dharma text going out into the benefit of all beings. So this is another way of sort of part of implications of refuge, respecting the actual Dharma text. Also respecting Sangha. Dondrup makes a very good point in his teachings, in his transcript about how hard it is for Sangha to survive in the West. He should know because he's been ordained for 30 or 40 years, one of the most senior monks, Australian monk, teaching in Adelaide. And he says, most Westerners, they don't really understand the importance of supporting Sangha who usually aren't able to work. So if you go to Thailand, any Buddhist country where there's a tradition of supporting monks and nuns, people are far more generous. Vietnam, Thailand, and so on. They give understanding that the Sangha need help. So every day the Sangha do their rounds, the monks do their rounds in places like Laos and Thailand, and people happily make offerings of food and so on to them. In the West, this doesn't seem, it hasn't happened, but I guess things are so new. It's very new to have people walking around in robes. In this, I guess the Christian tradition is that the people live in monasteries and they don't settle, they get supported by the church. But whereas Buddhism is so new, we don't have these resources. So anyway, it's important to help Sangha if we can, as much financially and materially. Also, if we see circumambulating stupas or paying respect to Buddhist images, drawing them. So this is why we have Buddhist art classes at VI. Andy Weber being, a master who comes usually once a year, if he can. I can't this year, of course, teaching how to draw Buddhist images. And of course, circumambulating stupas. So we have a prayer wheel, which is good to spin when you walk past it. And most centres also have a stupa, which is a representation of Buddha's body, speech and mind, the three jewels. So paying respect to that is done usually by just circumambulating, walking around at least once or more than once. Great merit can be generated. There are holy relics inside stupa. So what I want to do is just leave time to do a meditation on Shakiminibudi, Buddha, which is like a visualization meditation, and using the three qualities of the Buddha to help with the practice of refuge. So just general, this is Lam Rim teachings on page 3 of the notes there. Yangtze Rinpoche's text, page 148, covers this. So it's basically basic Lam Rim teachings. So we need to take refuge repeatedly, remember the good qualities. This is a daily part of daily practice, or prayers. Daily prayers, Buddhist prayers, will involve taking refuge of Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, and reflecting on their qualities. So instead of when we have everyday problems, financial, relationship, any sort of problems, thinking that the Dharma might be of help here, rather than going to thinking of forgetting that we have Dharma wisdom, we have the teaching, and quite possibly there's some way we can use to control our anger. There's patience, teachings on patience and so on, the benefits of patience and the disadvantage of anger, the benefits of compassion. So just remembering the teachings and using it to help when we have problems. What would our teacher do? If we have a teacher, our guru, one good question is, what would our teacher do in this situation if we have some sort of familiarity with their behaviour? Reflecting on the kindness. So other thing is to, just before you take the first bite of your food, any meal, breakfast, lunch or dinner, giving the first portion of the food to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Just quickly, this can be done quite quickly, just taking refuge, dedicating. So it's a bit like, it's grace, it's the equivalent of grace and giving acknowledgement to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and the kindness of all sentient beings, compassion as well. Introduce Dharma if appropriate, so only if the person shows interest, because actually preaching, evangelizing is definitely not part of the Buddhist teaching, it's not encouraged. But if, say, our family members, partners or friends express some interest, we should give what they want. They may not want full teaching, but they might just want some sort of easy breathing meditation or something. They might just want to know a little bit about what Buddhism is about. So give them enough to answer the question. So always sincerely ask questions about the Dharma, truthfully and as best we can. And so this is so it involves skill, particularly if we have close friends, say, who are not Buddhists and maybe having health problems or whatever. We know that we need to use our knowledge of that person's mind and personality to see whether they're receptive to maybe having a simple meditation. Maybe they'd be interested. So you can just sort of float the idea, and if they show interest, you can perhaps give them some healing practice to do, some basic mantra or so, depending on the person's interest. but be available with help if the person wants it. Never forsake 3 jewels, even at the cost of your life. So the best example of these refugees, Tibetan monks who come from Tibet and who have been incredibly mistreated, tortured, almost killed, sometimes have been killed, and they've suffered. They come to India, and the classic story is that one of their monks met His Holiness the Dalai Lama and said he was really scared when he was being held and detained by the Chinese. And Dalai Lama said, well, I'm scared of being killed. He said, no, scared of losing my compassion for my torturers, my tormentors. But this shows incredible dedication, and obviously they're going to keep their refuge in the 3 jewels regardless of their life. They're perfect examples. All right, so let's now do our short meditation on Shakiminibudi. So this is a practice that's in your notes. It's on page 58 of the transcript of Dondrup's teachings, if you want to do it at home. And it's by Constant Venerable Connie or Constance Miller. So basically, the practice is, it's quite a strong emphasis on visualization, but if you can't visualize clearly, it's fine. Just there's a lot of light. We can usually visualize light. We can, or the feeling of the Buddha's blessings coming into our hearts. So don't take it too seriously if you can't actually get the perfect replica of the Buddha in our minds when we're visualizing. I certainly can't. But there are different bits of the visualization that might be stronger. And sometimes it could be the throne or the sun cushion the Buddha is sitting on. Lama Zopa said that if you can just visualize maybe a tiny part of the image that you're trying to visualize, like the eye or the ear, just one piece, that's a good start. And sometimes the rest of it will slowly appear over time, and not usually instantly, but by repetition. So we spend some time, first of all, the motivation, of course. We're doing our practice for the benefit of becoming a fully enlightened being, for the benefit of all being. Then we set up the visualization. Buddha is extremely beautiful. So this is classic. This is the Buddha with the 8 signs and 35, what is it, 20? I've forgotten the number. The innumerable number of signs and marks. And so visualization just mentions some of these things, these marks and signs. And then we visualize rays of light coming. So blessings from the Buddha's body coming into our hearts and receiving the blessings. There is a mantra, it's Tayata Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Soha. That's the Shakiminibudi mantra, Shakiminibudi mantra. Only if you know it, then you can recite it. And it's written there if you want to do it later on. So that's the Shakiminibudi mantra, very powerful mantra. It's the very first mantra I heard, I think, when I went to a teaching with Lama Yeshe in the Chenrezig Gompa up in Queensland, early 80s, long ago. And this incredible monk came in, Lama Yeshe. Everybody stood up, and then the first thing as we sat down, he chanted very loudly, the whole group chanted the Shakiminibudi mantra, Tayata Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Soha. So this incredibly, it's like resonated. Very obviously stuck in my mind. So very powerful mantra. So in the actual practice, mantra is optional if you know it. So we make requests to the Buddha, requesting for his blessings, and you imagine that the first lot of blessings come in form of light, purifying light, and they're purifying, they're purifying all our negatives. Second one is a request to have the Buddha's qualities, enlightened qualities, enter our body, speech, and mind. And so we imagine that happening, body, speech, and mind. And then to end the practice, we imagine the Buddha coming to the crown of our head and sinking into our hearts, and we become, we absorb all the qualities of body, speech, and mind of the Buddha. Very, very great blissful feeling. Great practice. And there is a picture in the transcript if you want to print it out. I think it's coloured. So let's do the practice and get comfortable. Find a good position, sitting, lying, or whatever. A few moments to just calm the mind with a few breaths, slightly longer breaths, and then just watching the natural breath. So we think we set the motivation that we're doing this meditation not just for our own individual benefit, but to meditate, develop our mind to reach a state where we can benefit all beings, all sentient beings. Begin now by imagining sitting around us are our friends, family, all sentient beings, infinite in number, in all the 10 directions, all wanting happiness like we do, or wanting to avoid suffering, but knowing that these beings like us do suffer different ways. We're going to do this practice for ourselves and on behalf of all these beings. We begin by just visualizing the lever of our forehead, about a body length away, an image of Buddha Shakyamuni. Buddha Shakyamuni is made of light, very bright and clear, transparent. He's sitting on a golden throne made of light. On the throne is a white lotus, a sun cushion and a moon cushion. These represent the 3 principles of the path: renunciation, the lotus; emptiness, the sun cushion; and bodhicitta, compassion, the moon. And sitting on this throne is Buddha Shakyamuni. The body is gold in colour, made of light, sitting in full lotus posture, wearing saffron robes. The palm of his right hand rests on the right knee, and the fingers touching the moon cushion, signifying great control over delusions. The left hand is in his lap, holding an alms bowl filled with nectar, which represents medicine which can cure all our delusions. Buddha Shakyamuni's face is very beautiful, very peaceful, and he smiles to us with his eyes filled with love and compassion. accepting us with all our faults. He has blue-black hair, a crown protrusion. Feel very strongly that we're in the presence of an enlightened being who understands all our problems and accepts us exactly as we are, and who strongly wishes to help reach the state of enlightenment. Rays of light emanate from each pore of the Buddha's holy body, reaching every corner of the universe. These rays are actually composed of countless miniature Buddhas going out to help living being and then dissolving back into his body. Now develop this attitude of taking refuge in the Buddha's enlightened qualities. Recognizing that by applying the medicine of the Buddha's teachings, we can become enlightened ourselves like the Buddha. Then we make a request for the Buddha to send his blessings so that we can become free of all our negativities and develop all the realizations on the path to enlightenment. As we make the request, a stream of purifying white nectar light flows from the Buddha's heart, enters your body through the crown of your head. Feel that light is purifying all the negativities, and our body's filled with blissful white light. If we know the Buddha mantra, we can recite Taya Ta Om Muni Muni Maha Muni E Soha as we receive these blessings, as the light fills our body. So just staying with that visualization of the light, Buddha's blessings pouring into our body, purifying our negativities, dispelling all our hindrances, filling up with blissful white light. We also request that the Buddha sends his blessings so that we can develop all the qualities that benefit sentient beings, including ourselves. And now Buddha sends golden light from his heart, entering through the crown, filling us with golden light, the qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind, filling our body, speech, and mind. Feeling great bliss as we're filled with golden light. Staying with our visualization of light pouring into our body from the crown, golden light, receiving the blessings of Buddha's holy body, speech, and mind. A feeling of bliss. If we know the mantra, reciting Taya Ta Muni Muni Maha Muni E Soha. Now we visualize that Buddha Shakyamuni comes to the crown of our head, facing the same direction as us. Now we concentrate on all the sentient beings around us, generating great love and compassion for them. The Buddha's rays emanate from the Buddha's heart and our own heart. And these rays fill all the body, speech and mind of all the beings around us, bringing them the qualities of Buddha's body, speech and mind. They're experiencing great bliss and wisdom. Playing with that, visualizing all the blessings of the Buddha on the crown of our head, extending to all beings around us. Finally, now the Buddha on the crown of our head dissolves into golden light and absorbs through our crown into our heart. Imagine our ordinary concepts of ourselves dissolve, become one with the enlightened body, speech and mind of the Buddha's blissful body, speech and mind. And his omniscient mind in the form of empty space. So these blessings fill our heart, radiate out, fill our body, speech and mind. Staying that blissful state as long as we can. Remember the qualities of Buddha's body, speech and mind from our Refuge teaching. Developing the wish to obtain those qualities. And the conviction that we can obtain those qualities based on our Buddha nature, our Buddha potential, having confidence. Finally, we can just rejoice in having done this meditation and creating the cause to enable us to become enlightened ourselves and to be able to enlighten others. So we can dedicate any positive benefit, merit in our minds towards attaining a perfect state of mind where we can benefit countless beings. A Buddha state of mind. Also, I'll just read Lama Zopa's special dedication for the coronavirus. However many sick sentient beings there are, may they quickly be freed of all sickness. May all sickness, without exception, of all transmigrating beings never occur again. Due to the merits of the 3 times collected by me and the numberless Buddhas, numberless sentient beings, may all wars or sickness or famine or torture, poverty, economic problems in the world, or dangers of earth, water, fire and wind be pacified immediately. May perfect peace and happiness prevail in everyone's hearts and lives. May the Buddha Dharma last for a long time, and may sentient beings in this world meet the Buddha Dharma and achieve enlightenment as quickly as possible, dedicating to that. So that's the class for tonight. Thanks so much for being there, and have a great week, and I hope to see you the next week, same time. Take care and stay well.